Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the delay, but I'll give everyone a couple seconds to get in the room and we'll get started. You are joining today for the Operations and Supply Chain Management Conquer Your Career series. So, welcome everyone. I'm going to jump in because we are a little bit behind on time. And so, what I want to do first is allow our panelists that we have joining us today to introduce themselves. So, I'd like to start with Layla first.
Hello, everyone. I'm Layla Taymori, and I'd like to start by thanking the Forte Foundation for inviting me to speak today. It's truly an honor to share my journey and passion for both operations and supply chain. My story starts with humble beginnings. I began working at 15 in construction cleanup, where I learned to treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. I later worked as a maid and then in retail selling ladies' shoes at Dillard's, all while earning 2 associate degrees at Houston Community College. I've never stopped working throughout my entire education. That drive carried me to the University of Houston, where I earned my bachelor's degree in supply chain management, along with 2 certificates, one in energy supply management and one in strategic sourcing. During that time, I also worked full time, helping to launch multiple Aldi grocery stores, including the first one in the Houston market. After graduation, I took on my first professional supply chain roles. The first one was with Growth Corporation. I was a procurement specialist there. And then I moved on to SABIC, which is a petrochemical company, and I was a senior demand planning analyst. Later, I joined ExxonMobil, where I held multiple roles as a deployment planner, a shift supervisor, and a reliability engineer. While working rotating day and night shifts, I decided to pursue my MBA at West Texas A&M University, and I'm proud to say that I graduated with a perfect 4.0 GPA, all while being a single mom. Balancing motherhood, work, and graduate school taught me more about time management, grit, and purpose than any textbook ever could. During my MBA, I learned about Amazon's Pathways program, which is a fast track leadership development program for MBA graduates. And I was immediately drawn to the challenge and impact of leading large scale operations. I applied, interviewed, and joined Amazon as part of that program. Today, I'm proud to serve as a Pathways Operations Manager at Amazon, where I lead high performing teams in a fast paced environment focused on safety, quality, and continuous improvement. Across 6 different states and countless lessons, one thing has stayed with me: advice from my late father. Never ask anyone on your team to do something you don't know how to do yourself. That mindset shapes my leadership style. I believe in rolling up my sleeves, learning the process firsthand, and working right alongside my team. What truly drives me is process improvement, finding ways to eliminate waste, reduce costs, remove barriers, and of course, making employees' jobs easier, all while delivering more value for customers. Watching my team grow, gain confidence, and succeed is the most rewarding part of my journey.
Thank you, Layla. And we're going to have Camille introduce herself.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Camille Mendoza. I am a purchasing manager at Rocket Lab. I started my undergraduate studies at California State University, Long Beach, and I studied economics. After graduation, I joined a company called Aerojet Rocketdyne, and I was with that company for about 7.5 years. During my time at Aerojet Rocketdyne, I was also in a operations leadership rotation program where I was able to get through the gambit of operations management type roles. I was a manufacturing engineer, a quality engineer, a buyer, a procurement manager, a program manager at a time. So I went through it all and I got the full spectrum of operations management during my time. Um, in parallel, while doing the operations rotation program, I was also pursuing my MBA from UCLA's Anderson School of Management, and I pursued that program with their fully employed hybrid model because the entire time I was doing my MBA, I was actually in a different state. I started in Virginia, then moved to Washington, then to Arkansas, and then finally landed myself back in California. So I actually graduated this past March. In April, I had my son, and then in July, I joined the Rocket Lab team as part of their supply chain organization. And just to give a little bit of background on Rocket Lab, We are an end-to-end space company, so we're a direct competitor with SpaceX. We have a small launch vehicle called Electron and a medium launch vehicle called Neutron that's in development, but we also create satellites and satellite components. So we're trying to be the one-stop shop for all of your space needs, which I'm sure a lot of you didn't think that you would have space needs, but the environment and the world is changing where we have different demands for the technology and innovation that's required for us to get to space. So, really am honored to be here today and to speak on my insights of my career and my MBA path. Thank you.
Thanks, Camille. And Catherine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Tucolby. I'm happy to be here. I am currently a general manager at Republic Services. I graduated from the University of Arizona for my undergraduate degree, actually in accounting. Started my career working for a publicly traded electric utility company in Arizona. It's where I'm born and raised. Worked my way through the finance and accounting departments actually in that organization. Spent about 4 years there, but had always planned on getting my MBA. So I applied to several different business schools, ended up joining the MBA program at Harvard Business School. Would describe that as the most transformative experience I've ever been through in my life, including introduction to both seasons and snow because I'm from the desert. So the MBA experience really pushed me in a number of ways, forced me outside of my comfort zone, which is something I'm very, very grateful for. But in thinking about my post-business school career, I had really two major priorities coming out of that, which was to step into a more strategic role along the lines of, becoming more of a generalist versus a specialist and join a company that was making an impact. So I did have a brief stint working at a fintech startup as their first finance hire, but then joined Republic Services about a year after graduating business school as a finance manager. So that was a little over 5 years ago. I spent time in the finance manager role. All my roles so far here have been out in the field. So then I spent a year in our GM accelerated program. It's something we offer for MBA grads normally. I did join internally. It's a little unconventional, but it's an awesome program. You spend around 2 years learning about the business and doing different rotations to prepare you to become a GM. So I've been in my role as a general manager for about 2 years now. And those of you who aren't familiar, Republic is a Fortune 300 environmental services company. So I work primarily on the waste and recycling side of the business based in the San Francisco Bay Area. But Republic, really gave me that exact blend that I was looking for of high impact industry and then also a high impact role. Everyone needs their waste taken care of. So we really touch everyone, the communities, the employees, our frontline employees, and not to mention the sustainability aspect, which is very important to us. And, now I get to be in this role where I'm running an operation of, over 100 employees, managing a P&L of 100 million in revenue, and truly being that strategic decision maker on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Everyone has such great backgrounds. And so this is a perfect question to start everything off. So let's start with Layla. How would you describe supply chain operations to someone who has never ever worked in the field? And why do you even like working in this type of work?
That's an excellent question, Wendy. So I describe operations and supply chain management as the heartbeat of any business. It's where strategy meets execution. It's about turning plans into results and ensuring that every product, process, and person works together seamlessly to deliver value to the customer. You see how diverse the field can be. Just from the panelists today speaking, it can take you anywhere, any industry. There are so many different roles. What drew me to this field was the fast-paced, dynamic environment and the ability to make tangible, measurable improvements every day. I love that even small process changes can have massive impacts, especially with somewhere like Amazon. Saving money, increasing efficiency, improving employees' daily experiences. But what keeps me here in supply chain is the people. Developing my team, seeing them grow, watching them reach their full potential. That's what fulfills me the most in this career.
Love it. Camille, same question for you.
Yeah, I'll just approach it from the supply chain perspective. I would say supply chain is getting you everything that you need to run a business, whether or not you know you need it, whether that's indirect, like a computer, a desk, the facility to put your employees in, and the things that don't actually go into the product that you're selling or providing to the world, or it's direct. On my side, being in manufacturing, it's the nuts and the bolts that go on the satellite, it's the avionics, it's all of the components that will be integrated into the overall assembly in order for you to create the thing that's going to be purchased by the customer. So it's all little piece parts to bring into the overall assembly to get you what you need to be the thing that's sold that's going to give your company to generate the profit. That's what the business is.
Okay, so with that in mind, you have a lot of pieces and parts, and you have a lot of different operational aspects of the company. They're all going on at the same time. And so, Catherine, for you, what decisions do you have to routinely make? And how do you decide what gets put at the top as a priority and what gets put at the bottom in this type of role?
Yeah, there are daily trade-offs. We're oftentimes fighting fires on a daily basis. So, while we definitely have to adjust every single day, I start out by defining those strategic priorities right away. So every year we talk about obviously our goals for the year, but we have some core principles in here in my team and my business unit that guide us. And we let those guide us. I let those guide me when having to make those trade-offs. So, for us, those are number one thing always is safety. So I will always address any safety issue first. We'll put everything else aside for that. There's other things we care about too that are of varying levels of importance, but setting those up front really helps me make those trade-offs as different things come up throughout the day. And then the other thing that's really important is making sure your team is empowered and has the resources they need to be able to handle the stuff that comes up that I am having to trade off, because what that means is someone else needs to take care of that. And so making sure they're empowered, making sure that we have developed them to be able to handle the situations that can't fit on my plate.
Okay, this just seems like a lot. And I want to go back to something. I think maybe it was Layla who said this, but the question is actually for Camille. But supply chain and operations is kind of the center hub of any organization, right? You have things that come in, you have things that go out, but let's think about the bottom line and how supply chain and operations affects the bottom line. I had a role where I worked for a CPG, and the mere fact that the number of um, ingredients, let's call them, that goes into your final product, how far out you kind of purchase those for affected the bottom line because it affected your costs. So Camille, let's talk about that a little bit, how those decisions are made and how it affects the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for most of the business, people are focused on price and how to increase margin and all of that. And it's seldom focused on the cost aspect. And that's where supply chain and operations are constantly focused on is just what is it going to cost? And it's like Catherine said, there are some trade-offs, but there are some non-negotiables like quality and safety. So, um, although we're all invested in trying to reduce the cost, there are some things that we're not willing to take away from what is completely necessary in having, like the safety parameters, whatever we need, like um, protective wear for our technicians and operators, like they need to have that. But if you were just to look at it on a piece of paper or on an Excel spreadsheet and you see these costs that seem really small and you're like, oh, maybe we can eliminate that. And it's not entirely true. So I think one element that's misunderstood about supply chain and operations is that you really have to understand the processes and everything that takes place within those two functions, or actually there are many functions underneath operations that have necessary costs. And you really have to be understanding of all of those little elements in order to make really strategic and intelligent cost-cutting decisions in order to increase those profit margins. So yeah, supply chain and operations has a very big role in the overall like money flow of a business.
Okay, so to get prepared for this type of role, let's talk a little bit about the MBA and the types of courses that you took or maybe clubs that you were in. So this question is for Catherine. Um, if you can talk about the choices that you made during your MBA, the curriculum that you had a chance to choose. What did you do to get you prepared for something like this?
Like I mentioned, I was trying to pivot into being a little bit more of a generalist. So I tried to really vary, and luckily, my MBA program, you don't have to pick a concentration. And so tried to really vary the electives to make sure I was understanding, I would say, like the full picture of the business. I think as someone said earlier, operations is really the heartbeat of like any organization. And so by understanding how all the pieces fit together, I think it actually serves you best. I think it can help you when you're interviewing. I would also say, not necessarily on the club side, but go learn about as many companies as possible. So, a lot of companies are coming on campus. Um, there's career chats available in a lot of different formats, and understanding all these different businesses and kind of keeping that operational lens and mindset as you learn about these different things, I find it's really helpful, especially if you're looking to jump into this world like me from a non-operational background. It can really help you, you know, sell yourself as someone who understands the bigger picture.
Camille, if you don't mind answering this question too, I'd like to get your perspective as well as Layla's, if y'all don't mind.
Yeah, I probably would just echo a lot of what Catherine had said as far as understanding the different functions from each business. I think what's really unique is that even amongst the panelists, we are in operations and supply chain roles, but we're in vastly different industries. Um, like Catherine has the services, and Layla also has services, but also kind of produces the product as well through Amazon. And then for me, I have true manufacturing. So take advantage of having those companies who come onto campus and talk about what kind of operations and supply chain interests you the most, and what industries really align with what you're after in a post MBA role. And I think that will really help guide you in your overall career or your job search post program. I would say for at Anderson, we had a strategy and operations specific student organization. So if there is one like that at your school or at your target school, I would definitely recommend joining that because like for me, I was in a fully employed program, so I benefited from learning from other students who were in strategy and operations roles, but in different companies and in different industries. So I took our like monthly discussions, and I applied it how I could in the manufacturing space. And I don't think I would have been able to really like think outside of the box in that way because I just didn't have that experience. So I have the benefit of just having that seep in from the other students who have that experience. So I would definitely seek out those student organizations if you have them at your target school.
And Layla, I want you to answer that, but I also want you to talk about your recruitment process too.
Perfect. So the advice I would give while getting your MBA, make sure that you're building your network. That's very, very important from the very beginning. Join as many clubs as you can, especially if you have the extra time. I also worked through school, so I realized that, it's like Camila, it's very difficult. But try to join what you can. Right now, a hot topic is AI, right? So make sure that when you're taking those courses in your MBA career, pay attention. Ask a lot of questions. They're going to differentiate you. They're going to set you apart. Um, we're always still going to need people leaders, right? But those people leaders need to be able to utilize those tools properly to make us just that much better. And as far as the whole process about recruitment for operations and supply chain roles, there's a really heavy focus on leadership, analytical thinking, and problem solving. My advice is to start by researching each company that you're interested in. Understand what their leadership principles are, what their challenges are, and what their values are. And then get yourself set up with some stories. Take on projects. Weave your stories around those themes to show alignment. You need to take your time and prepare for these interviews. You need to do mock interviews, practice telling stories with data. Data is super important right now. Highlight your measurable results that show the impact, scalability, and leadership through others as well, not just through yourself. Most importantly, remember that interviews, they go both ways. They're not just a one-way street. Ask questions about the company culture. Ask about the leadership style that they have there and the expectations to ensure that it's a right fit for you. You stand out when you can connect your metrics to principles, showing that, it's not just about what you achieve, but how your leadership and process improvement mindset made it possible. I have a little bit of a unique perspective on this one because I'm actually now doing the interviews for Amazon often. So I will tell you that what I'm looking for when I'm interviewing candidates is high level thinking. And I want to see my favorite part of the interview is at the end when I ask you if you have any questions. It's extremely important for me to understand how high level you can think and how you led through others and how you show appreciation and recognition for your team.
So this next question is still with you, Layla. And the other two, Camille and Catherine, you can jump in too. But how was it when you first stepped into this role at Amazon? And what kind of learning curves did you have? How did you get up to speed? Did you make any mistakes? What advice would you give?
Oh yeah, plenty of mistakes were made. When I first stepped into the role post MBA, the biggest challenge was learning the technical side. That's why I'm saying it's very important to pay attention to these classes that you guys are in while leading the large teams. I tackled that by getting as close to the processes as possible. I spent a lot of time on the floor. That's another reason why I love the Pathways program is kind of built in. They have an associate experience week where you learn how to do everything that your team is doing. I listened to my team. I learned how everything really worked at a very granular level. One early mistake I made was trying to solve too much on my own. I kind of just got in there and wanted to be the CEO, right? So I quickly realized that success in operations isn't about being the smartest person in the room at all. It's about empowering others, removing barriers, and trusting your people's expertise. That experience has taught me that great leadership is hands-on, humble, and human.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the leadership piece, and I'm going to throw this to Catherine. So, in your role, you have a great role right now. I'm kind of curious, how do you demonstrate leadership and influence in your role, especially with cross-functional teams? Because in this type of supply chain ops role, you're a general manager role, you're talking to so many different departments every day, right? So, how do you demonstrate influence and leadership?
I think it's super important to listen and display humility. So similar to what Layla was talking about, I certainly did not know everything, especially about the business when I stepped into the role. And so the easiest way to gain people's trust is to display the humility and not assume you know everything. So you also want to acknowledge that people have competing priorities. Um, and by acknowledging that, you can work towards a solution when you're dealing with kind of all these cross-functional teams. So put yourself in other people's shoes is really my advice. And think about, before a meeting, think about how they might be thinking about this topic that you're going to be discussing so that you can be as productive as possible. Maybe you have a completely different point of view, but if you know what theirs is, it's going to help a lot to get a solution on the table. And then, the other part of cross functionality, especially in operations, I would say don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I'm out in the truck and in the fields as much as possible because otherwise, how would I influence people if I'm never out there seeing what they're up against? And also acknowledging. I often tell our frontline employees, I'm like, listen, I can't do your job. So like help me understand what challenges you're facing, but also know that I'm here with a message that I need you to receive as well. And you just have to make it all based on trust to really be able to influence people, no matter what their background or what their role is.
So influencing people and also influencing, I guess through AI, right? Let's switch the conversation to AI. I want to ask Camille a question. Um, how do you think AI is going to affect your role, and especially at your organization and what you do? Are you using it already? And what do you see the future look like for AI?
Yeah, so at Rocket Lab, definitely we do take advantage of AI. We have a homegrown AI chat that we use, and from our leadership, there's definitely a push to take advantage of that in ways that make sense. I think from a leadership perspective, though, we need to take a pause and really understand what we're asking people to do with AI and with automation, and not to just blindly push it onto our employees. Like Layla was already saying before, we have to pay attention to how it's evolving. One issue that we have at Rocket Lab is cybersecurity because we have government customers and all of that. And so it's really sensitive. And sometimes, AI is a way for bad actors to try to infiltrate our information and our data, even through outside of our professional world, using like our social platforms to try and infiltrate and try to get our information. And that's something that at Rocket Lab leadership has to be hyper aware of. Like we're constantly trying to cut through the noise and making sure we're making the right decisions and using AI strategically. Um, and I'll treat automation separate of AI because automation kind of has its own other implications. Um, like in my prior company, I was actually in charge of a site facility expansion and introducing automation to the manufacturing process. And so I was introducing it to a production line that had never touched automation, and it's a very particular production process. And so you had to really analyze the product that was being given to you, the automation line, and whether or not it actually fit our product, because this was the first time we were qualifying it against this product that we were manufacturing. It had other applications with other companies and all of that, but we had to be really particular. Like we can't just pick up what someone else had created and put it in this place and hope that it works for us, because that's just not how it is. Although we have AI and automation to help simplify some of our daily tasks, we still have to take the upfront investment and analyze it and make some strategic decisions whether or not that investment makes sense for us, for our business, for our employees, and the like.
AI is just a very, it can be scary, but it also can be extremely helpful, in my opinion. And I want to ask Layla this next question too. Where do you see the future of supply chain and ops going? And if you could talk a little bit about what you see at your current organization, that would be great, or just in general.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I chose supply chain is it's I want to say almost layoff proof. It's a lot a better a better place to be in trying times, right? In recession. Um, AI has really shaped Amazon quite a bit. I'm sure everybody's read the news. We've invested quite a bit in AI. We already have full automation in a lot of our fulfillment centers. But at the end of the day, we do, like I mentioned before, we still need people. I mean, it's very important to have the human aspect, especially from a leadership perspective. So you need to make sure that what you're bringing to the table is enough to replace AI. I mean, you have to have that empathy. You have to have the interpersonal skills and the emotional intelligence to lead, so that you can continue to stay up with all of the AI coming in. The future, I we'll see what it holds. I know that, like I said, we're investing a lot in Amazon. We also have our own homegrown AI. Uh, so we'll see. But like I said, in the meantime, I'm just going to continue leading my team with empathy and ensuring that I bring value to the table.
So I have another question, and this might be the final question. I want to start with Catherine. In this particular industry, how do you stay up to date with everything that's going on? And what advice would you give to the attendees today? How do you stay up to date with everything?
Great question. We have, honestly, there's actually a couple of waste and environmental services specific publications. So I try to stay up with the industry that way, but it's a challenge. I'll be honest, it's a challenge. There's a lot I need to stay up with just to run my business. And so I think it's something that I'm still looking. Maybe I can use AI to help me stay up to date on what's going on. But it's definitely one of the priorities that gets knocked off the list when other stuff comes up. But I would say, one, especially when you're in business school, take advantage of that time to like get in a routine of, what you like. You've got a specific industry in mind, pick those out while you have time. A lot of people will probably tell you this. You may feel busy or seem busy when you're in your MBA program, but I miss those days for sure. So take the time to establish that routine. I try to do a few minutes every morning if I can. But yeah, it's a challenge to keep up with for sure.
Camille, what about you? How do you stay up to date with everything?
Yeah, I think actually one really simple way that I try to keep up with everything is just using LinkedIn. Like taking advantage of the network that I created through the MBA program. Again, I have classmates who are in different industries and different companies, and what they share or what they're learning is easily accessible to me through LinkedIn. And then it also reminds me to, spark a conversation with somebody if I'm curious about something that they've posted or a conference that they had just recently attended. And speaking of conferences, for me, trade shows and conferences are a great way to highlight the emerging technology, especially in the manufacturing space. So I recently went to one in September, and for me, it's a great opportunity to go and actually see how people are applying new technologies and meet like face to face with some of my vendors and improve those relationships as well. I think those have been some of the best ways for me to stay up to date on how this industry is changing for me. Um, yeah.
Thank you. And Layla, what about you?
Okay, so Camille and Catherine both gave some great examples of how to stay up to date. I would just throw in there that I also like to learn from the floor up on the operations floor. A lot of what I learn is actually from the associates in the front line. They'll find their own process improvements. If you're close enough to them, they're the closest ones to the process. They're going to fix things themselves. So I keep a close eye on them. I also love learning, so I'm consistently reading. I'm staying up with my LinkedIn network, as Camille mentioned. And I mean, there's lots of different societies you can join. There's like ISM for supply chain, there's APIX, there's a lot that you can get involved in so that you can continue. But even just, I mean, looking through the internet and reading different articles, trying to apply them at your workplace. If you have backbone, that's one of our leadership principles at Amazon, then you can, just go in and you can try to apply anything and see if it works. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Okay, that was great. So I heard a lot of different things from the three of you, and I hope everyone today really appreciated the depth and breadth that each of you brought to the discussion. If you don't mind, and if you want to share your LinkedIn link so that students can reach out to you, but I just want to thank you again, Layla, Camille, and Catherine for joining today. I thought this was a really good discussion on ops and supply chain. And again, the next Conquer Your Career is leadership development programs. Those are also known as LDPs. That's November 5th. You can go on our website and you can register for that. And thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And thanks to our three attendees or our three panelists. But appreciate you joining and hope to see you next time. Bye, everyone.